Hello, and welcome once again to our News Channel 9 digital streaming studio, our election night coverage of 2024, the big Super Tuesday primary.
Super Tuesday is happening right now. The polls closed in Tennessee about 40 minutes ago or so. We got some results and not a whole lot just yet, but we're watching Super Tuesday also around the country. A lot of interesting stuff is happening, 16 states voting today. So, some of those races have been called as far as the primaries go and the presidential side of things, and a lot of no big surprises there so far tonight. So Joe Biden, Donald Trump, a lot of winning at this point. Although I think Vermont, last I saw, was too close to call. So who knows? But yeah, so we're watching a lot of the races happening right now. As we go through the night tonight, we'll start getting more numbers and more solid results here, at least here locally at the local races. Watching some school board races, obviously. There's a race for judge in Hamilton County. There's a DA up in Bradley County, Polk County, that area. So it's definitely some races here locally we're watching, and we're going to pull those up for you right now.
Yeah, this is our election results portion of NewsChannel9.com, and you can go here anytime to see some of the results coming in. So here's what we have right now. In Hamilton County, let's pop on over real fast to the Hamilton County Election Commission page. So you can see here they have 0 of 92 precincts reporting. And so what that means is that they haven't counted and added any of today's votes yet. That's still being brought into the Election Commission. But what they have counted, what is showing up, are those early and absentee ballots.
That's right. And so if just explain that a little bit, if you live somewhere other, out away from the election commission, they literally, after the polls close, they box all that stuff up. Actually, it's already sealed and secured, and then they just drive that over to the election commission, and you'll see them, lined up, dropping off all their secure ballots.
That's right. And so in early voting, it looks like we have about 13,000 people who cast those early and absentee votes together out of about 226,000 registered voters. Of the voters, we have about 26.9% Democrat and 73% Republican here. This is, again, just Hamilton County. So if you go down and look at some of the results, again, these are just absentee and early voting numbers. We have Donald Trump for the Republican primary for the office of president with about 62%, and then Nikki Haley with 32%. We have circuit court judge here, Alex McVeigh, with about 55% of the vote, and then Michelle Coffin with 44% of the vote. Some of the uncontested races there. We do have 2 school board races that are contested. Here's one, District 7. This is the Ed Garcia, Jody Schaefer race. Ed Garcia right now, only about 40 votes or less are between those two right now. But again, very, very early. And then our other contested school board race, if we can find it there.
That's just a good thing to keep in mind, right? Anybody who thinks, well, there's no point to go vote, my vote doesn't count. When you see a race like that divided by 40 votes, every vote counts. And maybe not in the larger races so much, but some of these local races will be decided, just by a few votes. And so, if you don't show up that day, that could be the difference between someone winning or losing on that given day.
We've seen that in the past. I think 10 votes as little of one local candidate winning.
Absolutely.
So District 4, that's a Democratic primary for county school board seat. We've got Missy Crutchfield with about 24% of the vote, and then Jackie Anderson Thomas with about 75% of the vote. And we do have our own Jacqueline Davis. She is covering the school board race here. Jacqueline, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
You can. Some early numbers coming in some of those school board races there.
Yeah, I did see Ed is in the lead right now compared to Jody. So those are the 2 candidates that I did talk to today. And they both were kind of saying the same thing in their own words of they're trying to bring a better future for our schools. And, like you guys were talking about, if you did get out there and vote, your vote does count in this because 40 votes isn't a lot. And it will show towards the end of the votes today. Now that the votes are closed, we're going to see that kind of differentiation between the 2, where people came out to vote as both of those candidates continued today to campaign as voters were coming in. I am standing outside of the election commission waiting for those votes to kind of come in and see what people had to do. So I did get a chance to talk to both of those two candidates earlier, and they just kept reiterating the happiness that they were there and that no matter what, it's just for the future of the schools.
Yeah. A great opportunity to really improve the quality of our school system, the education of our kids. And I believe that improving education, better schools, really does create a brighter future.
I advocate for those who don't have a voice, that can't speak for themselves. And that's what I want to bring to the school board, is an advocate as a mother, an advocate as a parent for students, teachers, administrators.
And Jacqueline, what do you know about those two candidates? What did you learn about them today and their backgrounds?
I did learn that they both do currently have kids in Hamilton County schools. So it's important to know that both of these candidates are trying to help their students that are a part of it, but also help others. And they can see the struggles that the students are currently going through too, because if they want to make a difference, that means they're going to fight to do what they can for the future as every kid is going through the process. And, you know, Jody is a lawyer. She was talking to me a little bit about how she's just trying to be a mother and show her kids how good of a race that this can be, and that if you can fight, she can fight for you as well. And when I was talking to Ed, he is retired, so he was telling me as well that, you know, he has that extra time on his hands to where he can dedicate his whole time to the school board to try to better enhance those schools.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. Yeah, there's a great point there. When you're in a competition like this and a race like this, how you run that race does matter. The people around you see how you handle the stress of that, how hard you work on these things. So yeah, so if you have these candidates who have young ones at home and their people in the community are seeing how they interact, so it's interesting to kind of like see how people do go through this process, because it's not easy to put your name out there and kind of, you know, feel judged by, you know, the support you get or you don't get and all those things. So there's a lot that really goes into it that probably a lot of us who don't run for these races probably don't fully appreciate all the time.
And, you know, especially because they both have little kids and they're running around through the school. So it's like, okay, if you're going to have little kids and still be going for such a big thing like school board, they're really dedicated to the schools right there.
Yeah.
So, Jacqueline, I want to show you a comment we have. Sherry Keener says, did the rain cause a lighter turnout? This was something that we have been speaking about all day. And so I want to pull up our Storm Track 9 interactive radar there. You can see we have been dealing with rain throughout the day. Jacqueline, you've seen it as you've been out reporting. And often, Josh, we do see lighter turnout on days that are rainy.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. We knew the rain was coming, right? This is not a big surprise here. But yeah, election day turnout. If you have like you said, you have a race that close, if you show up or you don't show up, can really swing the tide there. So yeah, when there's rougher weather or not nice of weather out there, it really affects the turnout. And I think, you know, we'll find out how big of a factor that was as we go through the night tonight.
That's right. Jacqueline, we know that those numbers are coming in slowly, so we will let you get back to looking at those numbers, talking to the candidates, and we'll see you live on News Channel 9 beginning at 10 and 11 tonight.
Yes, you will. Have a great rest of your night, guys.
All right, Jacqueline.
Thanks,
thank you,
Jacqueline, so much.
Another good point about school board, right, is it's one of those things when you really think about, like, over the last, you know, several years, the important votes that have happened in school board, right? You think about the schools consolidation vote that we've talked about a lot this year, when there's a new superintendent and these kinds of things. Like these folks are making big decisions for our entire community. So these positions really matter, and you're going to be asked to make some really tough decisions in there. And so how this plays out tonight will be interesting to see, because like you said, there are 6 incumbents who aren't running again. So a lot of new faces there. And think about that, of the hard votes that have happened on the last, in this past, cycle, how that may have looked different with different people in those seats.
That's right. And several of them are uncontested races.
Yeah.
So that's why we're focusing on these 2 races tonight. The District 4 Democratic primary between Missy Crutchfield and Jackie Anderson Thomas. And then we also have the one that we just spoke about, Jody Schaefer and Ed Garcia. So 2 races that do have candidates in the primary that are facing off against each other. And then several other ones, people just going through to the general election or to the seat, depending on which district there we're talking about.
Yeah, on a night like tonight, when you only have a few races you're watching closely, those get the most scrutiny. But that also shows how important those races can be.
That's right. I want to take a look at some of the other numbers. We're going to shift over to the News Channel 9 election results page there and go up to some of our other counties. We talked about the judge race there in Circuit Court, Alex McVeigh, who's winning right now. But if we go down to, let's say, the district attorney general race, the District 10 up in Bradley County, some of those other counties, we know that Sherry Taylor is the incumbent here, was appointed to the office. She is ahead with just 2% of precincts reporting, so a lot of numbers still to come in, but over Jeff Miller there and Stephen Hatchett as well. That's
right. That was the seat that Steve Crump had for quite a long time there, and it'll be interesting to see, who in that, you have an incumbent, but it's not an elected incumbent; it's an appointed incumbent. So it's interesting to see what the voters choose in that race.
And then going kind of down to the presidential numbers here. From the Secretary of State's website, we can see about 10% of precincts reporting across the state there. Donald Trump with about 54,000 votes so far. Nikki Haley with about 12,000. And then when we go down to Joe Biden with about 5% of those reporting, him coming away right now with about 9,000 votes at this point.
Yeah, no big surprises there, I don't think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We do also have the North Carolina governor's race going on tonight. And that has actually already been called in both of those primaries right now, even though only 23% of the precincts reporting. Josh Stein there declaring victory with 118,000 votes. And then Mark Robinson, the Republican, with about 144,000 votes there.
Yeah, so we know somebody new will be, in the governor's office there in North Carolina. But obviously, we'll see how that progresses as we head toward the general election. But yeah, those races have already been called tonight, and it's a big deal when you get a new governor in any state, for sure.
That's right. One story that we focused on today in our newscast and on our social media pages is a very interesting story about a new law in Tennessee that requires a sign to be put up in primary polling locations, which many people saw today. Maybe you didn't notice it even if you went to vote.
So it's a good point. I knew about the law, I knew about the sign, but wasn't thinking about it at the time. And I don't remember seeing a sign where I'm sure there was a sign there, but if you don't even know to look for it, you may not even know it's there.
Right. But we sent News Channel 9's Jordan Carnback out to talk about this sign, look at some of the issues regarding it, and talk about why some people felt it was important to have it there.
Sign makes it look like it's illegal, and perhaps it is, but what does that mean?
Voters across Tennessee, like Nicole McDermott, saw something new when they went to cast their ballot on Super Tuesday.
It seems like there's a lot of fuzziness around what it actually is and whether or not it's enforceable.
Yellow signs reminding them of a state law that's been on the books for more than 50 years. The law says a registered voter is entitled to vote in a primary election if, quote, the voter is a bona fide member of and affiliated with the political party. While the law is old, those signs warning voters of a crime are new, the result of a new state law passed last year.
It is a way to intimidate voters who are not sure about whether they are bona fide members of a political party.
Debbie Gould, president of the League of Women's Voters of Tennessee, says they challenged the new law that requires polling places to post these warning signs. But a judge just dismissed their claim, saying they lack the standing to sue.
This is a real concern that even though it has been on the books before, that suddenly now it will have a more visual impact on voters, and they will be concerned about whether they should participate.
However, there's no mechanism to enforce this law, according to the Hamilton County District Attorney.
I can't imagine a case in which law enforcement or my office would be interested in prosecuting under this statute, mainly because it would just be really difficult to prove.
Lewis Brill, officer of elections for the Riverview voting precinct, says they have not been given guidance on what to do if someone has questions about the new sign.
I would tell them, hold up for 1 second. I'm going to call the election commission, make sure I know exactly what I need to say that is appropriate or that is approved by them, and then I would get back with them on that.
Boy, if you hear those sound bites, right? The one woman there being interviewed saying about intimidation, and then you hear the DA talk about, well, it would be hard even to prosecute this, and so number one, it's a question around, okay, so if the DA is looking at that and says, okay, it's a law, we can obviously see that it's a law, but we don't have no way to prosecute it. It makes you kind of question, kind of like just that system, right? Like, what's the point of having a law that you can't prosecute? Why are you doing that at all? But also just how complicated that can make it for someone who's just looking at that sign, figuring out, what do I do here? I mean, am I doing something wrong if I vote in one party's primary or another? If I don't feel strongly, pulled in an ideological way. I mean, it's interesting, just kind of a concept around, the legalities around it.
And when you look at some of the races we're looking at here, right, like some of those school board races, if you live in one of the districts where there are no Democrats even running for school board, but there are 2 Republicans in the primary, and you want to have a say in who represents you on the school board, then some people would want to vote in that Republican primary just to be able to vote between the 2 candidates who are actually running, and wouldn't even think about whether they would have a Democrat or Republican affiliation. They just want to have a say in their representation on the school board. So many races in our area that are these local races that don't get a lot of candidates, if you only have one party represented, then your only way to do that is to pick Republican or Democratic, depending on what your ballot in your specific district looks like.
Yeah. Think about it. If you are a moderate or an independent, you're not pulled from one or the other, but here locally, Republicans often win races here locally. That's just the way it is. If you say, well, I'm not technically a Republican, do you just take yourself out of having a voice in who represents you in these races? Like, is that what the law is intended to do? Like, really? And so I think there's a lot of questions around, like, why is this conversation happening? Because if you wanted to make it a closed primary where you choose, I am a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, right? If you wanted that, that'd be the law. That is not the law we have, and it hasn't been that way. We've been having open primaries, for a very long time in Tennessee, and so we have open primaries. And so if you don't want to have open primaries, change that. Otherwise, looking at signs that don't really lead to a whole lot, what's the point?
Right. And if you look at this particular issue, it wasn't the law that changed. It was the law about the sign.
Yeah. The sign was the big thing.
Right.
Yeah.
The law has been on the books since, I believe, the 50s, for more than 50 years. And so the only thing that changed this year was this sign. But you're right. It brings up so many questions to people. Have I been doing something wrong in the past? Am I doing something wrong now? And who do I ask if the person sitting here would just have to call the election commission, right?
And if the law says you have to be a bona fide whatever, what does that mean? What's the definition of that? Like, specifically, do I have to vote Republican or Democrat all the time, every time before I'm bona fide? Or can I, choose based on who I think the best person is? What does that really mean?
Yeah. And so talking about who's on the ballot, bona fide member of the party, I want to go now to a story that we first reported on yesterday in Catoosa County, where the Catoosa County GOP decided that certain people, 4 different individuals, could not be on their ballot. And those 4 individuals said, hey, I've run as a Republican in the past. I've not had any problems running, in some cases for commission seats, for other seats. But now all of a sudden they had this issue. They weren't going to be able to be on the ballot. So they went to a judge. They pled their case. And today that judge decided, no, these guys need to be on the ballot. Right. So kind of a reversal of that there when a judge got involved.
Absolutely. And it brings the larger question. Who gets to decide what you are politically.
Mhm.
Do you get to choose if you're a Republican or Democrat, or does some kind of county or state board decide what you are? And how does that really work? And I think that's where the problem comes in, of like, who gets to define what you identify as when it comes to how you vote.
Mm-hmm.
And in Catoosa County, there that board making that decision clearly felt like that they could decide who could be on the ballot and who couldn't. And the judge stepped in and said, no, that's not really the way it should work. So those folks, all those folks, will be on the ballot coming up next week when they go to the polls. But early voting is going on right now, and so you think about that. If those folks haven't been on the ballot, how has that affected those early voting results, which, can be large in a race, especially when you have a smaller area like Catoosa County can be, right? Few votes could really make a big difference.
And how do we, yesterday we went to the Republican Party. In Catoosa County, we tried to get a statement. They told us they weren't going to comment yesterday, wouldn't even let us into the building. They have now released a statement in the late afternoon hours today saying the Catoosa County Republican Party proudly welcomes all county citizens who share our common conservative values and support the Republican principles. And then they go on to say, we are aware of certain individuals who recently filed suit to force the Catoosa County Republican Party to certify them. While the matter remains in court, it would be inappropriate to comment on that situation. But they do talk about one of the things that they ask people to do there is including but not limited to an oath of allegiance. So, we don't know exactly what went on behind those closed doors, why they decided one or the other, but we're going to keep asking those questions as the story unfolds because it's important. It's important to know who gets to make that decision. And in the end, what if they hadn't gone to a judge, right? And would it have been a different outcome?
What does that mean specifically? What are the standards? What is the oath of allegiance? What does that really mean? What are you saying? And, as we said earlier as well, right? The 2020 election was very close in Georgia, right? So if you start deciding either side, you're not part of our party, you don't belong here, there's a purity test of some kind. Like, it wouldn't take a whole lot to sway an election one way or the other if you're deciding, who's in the tent and who's out of the tent. I think there's a lot of interesting questions around that, but like you said, we'll keep digging into that and figure out what's going on there. There's something going on there for sure.
Yeah. So let's take another quick look before we leave you here at some of the numbers that we have coming in. This is our News Channel 9 election results page. We talked about 26% across Tennessee, with Donald Trump having about 75% of the vote there, Joe Biden about 96% of the vote in the Democratic primary. We have been told that Alabama has already been called for Donald Trump and Biden. No surprises there. We talked a little bit about North Carolina governor. Let's go down and see if we still have 0% of Hamilton County here. So not much change in those Hamilton County school board or judge races as we still wait for a lot of those precinct numbers to come in.
Yeah. So as the night goes on, some of these races will become much more clear, and we'll be live at 10 o'clock on Fox Chattanooga, and we'll be live at 11 on News Channel 9. So whatever the numbers are then, we'll report those then. And like always, there's probably some races that won't be completely decided by then. So look for more coming up tomorrow morning on GMC.
That's right. That's the good thing about election night. We're here tonight, and then we have Dane and Maggie carrying the torch into the morning, and Leslie Dominique with some of the election results locally too. So our crew has you covered. Let's talk real quickly about where we're standing. I know that we did this a little bit in our first hit tonight. This is our brand new digital streaming studio here at News Channel 9. We're debuting it here tonight on election night, but there's a lot of things we can use it for. Severe weather, when that hits, David Glenn, Bill Race, Ryan can come out here, jump on, pull up their interactive weather maps, talk to reporters in the field, show you what's happening there live. When big breaking news happens, just a couple weeks ago, we had the Meigs County deputy who drove his patrol car into the water, and we had lots of different developments happening in different parts of the county. We can come here, we can show you those maps, we can talk about where our crews are, what we know as it's coming into our newsroom. No longer waiting until 5 to 6, 10 and 11 p.m. to bringing you the news when it happens, anytime, right here from inside the News Channel 9 newsroom.
And if you're watching this, well, isn't this just like a regular Facebook Live or whatever? In a lot of ways, it is,
Mhm.
but this station gives us a lot more flexibility to show you different things as we've been showing you in this segment here. So we have a lot more flexibility to show you different feeds,
Yep.
different video feeds, different graphics and whatnot. So it definitely gives us some more tools. That's the Donald Trump watch party. Where's this?
That's in Florida, down at Mar-a-Lago. You
Mar-a-Lago.
can see people. They're not waving at us, unfortunately. They can't see us.
They don't know we're here.
But this is a live shot there on one of our feeds that's
Mm-hmm.
coming into the station. So yeah, the capability about what we can show you in real time as it happens is just top notch here. And we're going to use it to the best of our ability to bring you news as it happens across the area and across the nation when it becomes important to you and your family.
Yeah, it just gives us a lot more options to show you what's going on in real time.
That's
so
right.
There you go.
So we'll continue to keep you updated here. You can also tune in tonight at 10 and 11. And of course, Good Morning Chattanooga tomorrow morning. But thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See you soon.